One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Just do the damn work.
What a...
I mean, you know how it is. Sometimes you just have an uprising, you execute a family, you
Yeah.
put people against walls, you starve. What was it? 60 million people they starved? That's just neighborliness. Her agenda is horrific. Horrific. So they thought that, like, oh, you know, if we bring in Wilford Brimley, we can pull the wool over their eyes. But
Right.
Wilford Brimley, this guy is not.
It's Wilford Brimley if he was Karl Marx. So how did he govern? Like, I don't know. How did he govern? Let's take a look. Sanctuary state. Governor Tim Walz gave illegal immigrants taxpayer-funded healthcare, tuition, and driver's licenses.
Oh.
Interesting. He applauded state efforts, by the way, to pull troops off the border. When we're having a border
That is
crisis.
something to,
Think
He's
about that.
applauding that.
Why would you applaud something like that?
Folks, let me tell you about my friends at Americans for Prosperity, America's largest grassroots organization. Americans for Prosperity is out there every day fighting for you. Their goal? Reignite the American dream. AFP's priorities are simple: secure the border, end inflation, make energy more affordable. And AFP gets results the old-fashioned way, through grassroots activism. They bring together like-minded conservatives, turning them into a grassroots army, and defeating the left's terrible big government agenda in the states and in Washington. And that's where you come in. With the media, celebrities, and universities stacked against us, it's the grassroots that will help us win. So please find an Americans for Prosperity chapter in your state and get in the fight. Go to americansforprosperity.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention, please.
Just a catching strays over here.
You're in for a hell of a show.
Keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs.
It's time for our main event.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. A very big week here in the nation's politics. We saw a new VP nominee, amongst other things. We're going to have a lot to say about that. But fellas, how we doing? Josh Holmes, comfortably smug. Michael Duncan, an empty chair there for Smashbrook today.
Yeah. He's out on the road.
He's out on the road. He's doing the people's business.
Yeah, the hard work for the movement.
He is.
He's in Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right there in the heartland.
that's right.
Doing hard work. Yeah, no question about it. But as a result, when you don't have your ring announcer, you can't do King of the Hill. And I know Thursdays, everybody waits for King of the Hill, but
Ashbrook doesn't care.
It would
That's the thing, folks. That's what it comes down to. I'm here. Ashbrook isn't. But you know what? I hope he's doing well.
Yeah.
anyways,
He's gonna miss a hell of a show.
Yeah,
But
this one's gonna be great.
dear listener and viewer, will not.
I promise you that you're going to bookmark this sucker.
It'd be a good one.
You're going to love this show because we've got a lot to say about the developments over the last couple of days, where it takes us from here. We got a lot to talk about. One of the things that I'd like to start with, though, because this is going to be Waltz themed, this clown from Minnesota that the Democrats chose to be Kamala's number 2.
I got to ask you a question just right off the top. Are you personally
Yes.
offended by this as
Yes.
a Minnesotan?
Personally.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it deeply personal. For a variety of reasons that I'm more than happy to get into at a visceral level.
I get it. When
Yeah.
he announced, I was like, Holmes is taking a bat to this dude.
I mean,
as soon as it was announced, I was like, oh boy.
it just isn't my Minnesota.
And I don't blame you
know,
for it, man.
it's
He
just-
deserves it.
My boys at home would never let me hear the end of it unless I do what I'm about to do with
Good.
this guy.
I'm looking forward to it.
So we're going to get into all of that. Let's just start off with a little introduction. So this is the gentleman that we're working with here in clip number 1.
Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Just do the damn work.
What a...
I mean, you know how it is. Sometimes you just have an uprising, you execute a family,
Yeah.
you put people against walls, you starve. what was it? 60 million people they starved. That's just neighborliness.
Well, you take over people's way of making a living. You function it as a government entity. You ration out everything that you can give them as human beings, like they're rats in a cage. It's just, amongst friends.
It's almost like the aristocrats joke, where it's just like all the worst shit you've ever heard is neighborliness.
Yeah, he acts like confiscating your way of life.
Yeah.
is like picking up the FedEx package that's outside of your neighbor's house when they're absent.
I would love to see a socialist version of like borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbor. Like you show up and you demand the sugar and you bring a gun. You know, it's very funny. Just neighborly.
It's just neighborly, it's just the confiscation, that kind of thing, telling people what they can and can't have and things like that. So we've got a lot of this. We're going to go in detail. This is going to be by far the biggest segment that we're doing, but there's going to be a lot of laughs associated with it because there is funny shit here.
Yeah, there's a ton.
There's very funny shit here. So we'll talk a lot about Tim Walz, introduce you to this contemptible guy.
Contemptible clown.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about what it all means. We're also going to talk a little bit. There's a big loss in the Hamas caucus, fellas.
Yeah. Thoughts and prayers.
Thoughts and prayers.
It's been a really tough week for them. They lost the leader of Hamas and Cori Bush.
And one of their leaders in Congress.
And one of his top deputies.
So we're going to talk about all of that. I've got a little unconventional take. Some of us got some unconventional. We talked about this a little bit this morning with some of our friends. And so,
good take, honestly.
It's worth socializing, that's for sure, because I think it's something not everybody has thought of. But when you're in the operative game, you come at this a little different way than you do as just a voter who's offended by somebody like Cori Bush. So we'll talk about that. There's a bat infestation that you need to learn about. There's a New York Times op-ed that was written that frankly was flagged for me by a friend, Brian, this morning, that slipped under our radar. And it combines all of the best of animal violence and left-wing lunacy in a published op-ed by the New York Times.
I can't wait to hear this.
It's just so good. You've got to hear all about it. We've got some new merch.
Yeah.
Same as the old merch, but they, look, this merch right here, this hat, we have, I'm not kidding you, for probably 8 months, gotten inundated with people saying, like, bring back that hat. That hat in particular, we need that hat. That's the hat we want. And we were going through suppliers and whatnot, and we could never kind of get it back together the exact same way that we wanted it until now.
Yeah.
And here it is.
The rope hat.
Live
The rope hat is back.
I wore it on Tuesday. It's just it's a fantastic hat.
And I love that it's got the American flag on the side too. It's just a nice little added feature.
It's a limited edition. I think you even tweeted out that within 10 minutes.
So pretty much as soon as it went live, I think we had 70 in stock, and then I tweeted out we were down to 17, and that's when Drew was like, no, here's the last inventory. He didn't enter into the system, so all we have left on the website is all we have left. Once that's gone, then we'll probably be back to matching supplier, whatever that Drew did. But hey, he shook the tree and he found the last ones left.
Drew's over there at his desk like an operator using the old hello?
I'll give him credit. He figured out how to get him back because we were initially told that that's it.
Meanwhile, the old man's back just sewing away.
Just
trying to.
I got carpal tunnel over here.
You should see the thimbles. They're just worked through. We're going to have to get him some new stuff out there. So we're going to get to all of that. But I know you have an announcement that you'd like to make here.
That's right.
Too.
So my friends at the Nixon Foundation, I think I've made it clear a number of times on the show, I'm a huge fan of Richard Nixon. I thought he was a terrific unprecedented presidency of success, whether it comes to crime, strong economy, you name it. They are releasing a film called Watergate Secrets and Betrayals. It debuts on Thursday, August 8th. You can watch it online, watergatesecret.com. And here's the thing is, so folks may not be following this, but the Supreme Court essentially exonerated Richard Nixon of any wrongdoing whatsoever, right?
In their latest decision on presidential immunity.
Exactly. And so this documentary film, based on the 27,000 plus hours of research of Jeff Shepard, the youngest member of Nixon's legal team, completely rewrites the history of how the left wrongfully forced Nixon from office through secret meetings, secret memos, and secret coordination. Doesn't that sound familiar? Which is exactly why we are now in a position where Richard Nixon has been completely exonerated by the Supreme Court, and we can focus on number one. I think the left owes him more than an apology. I think the history books that our kids read need to reflect that this is someone who had a tremendously successful presidency, who beat the Dems in 49 out of 50 states for an electoral victory.
Last time Minnesota was won by a Republican presidential candidate, Richard Nixon, 1972.
Yeah, tremendous American. I got to visit his presidential library, his birthplace. Just a tremendous guy. I highly recommend everyone check out that film.
Nice.
Yeah, no, I want to see that. Okay, all right, that's awesome. We're going to get to all that we discussed right after this. Work-life balance doesn't feel realistic when you're working through lunches or staying up late to catch up. Free up time consumed by tedious mailing and shipping tasks with Stamps.com. Stamps.com streamlines your postage needs, making your businesses more efficient and putting more life into your work-life balance. Easily schedule package pickups through Stamps.com dashboard. From small businesses to multi-location organizations, Stamps.com handles all your mailing and shipping needs while reducing costs and increasing profit. Get rates you can't find anywhere else, like up to 89% off of USPS and UPS. Put more life into your work-life balance with Stamps.com. Sign up with promo code RUTHLESS for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a free digital scale. What's not to love about that? No long-term commitments or contacts. Just go to Stamps.com. Click on the microphone at the top of the page and enter the promo code RUTHLESS. Okay, fella, Tim Walz.
Here we go.
Here we go. Let's buckle seatbelts, chin straps, and everything else because we're not going to hold back on this one. This guy is a dirtbag.
Yep.
We don't have to just take it from us. I mean, obviously, we've got a partisan persuasion here, but we follow these things quite closely. Maybe it's worth checking in on the left as to why it is that you even know the name Tim Walz. Here's Van Jones, noted left-winger at CNN, but he has a penchant for telling it like it is.
Particularly when it comes to why they overlooked Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, who everyone considered the front runner for this position.
Exactly. Let's go to clip 2, Nikki.
Hey, listen, the conservatives, the right wing, the Republicans, they were chewing their fingernails down to the knuckle because they were afraid of a Josh Shapiro. They were afraid of a Mark Kelly. They're not as afraid of this new governor because they think they can define him. So here's the challenge you've got in this party. And people don't want to talk about it. We got to talk about it. On the one hand, you have a lot of young people who are concerned about Gaza. You have a lot of Muslims and Arabs and others. They have not felt seen by the Biden administration. You start hearing that genocide joke. That was building. And so those folks needed to have a candidate that they could feel comfortable with. This helps them in that regard. But you also have anti-Semitism that has gotten marbled into this party. You can be for the Palestinians without being an anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there. And there's some disquiet now, and there has to be. How much of what just happened is caving into some of these darker parts in the party?
Oh, he said it. He said, I can't believe he said it.
Yeah.
I can't believe he, but I mean, it's just as plain as day.
It is.
Right? There's never been a more obvious situation ever. You've got a very popular, according to today's polls, 65% approval rating for a young Democratic first-term governor from a state that Democrats absolutely have to win in Pennsylvania. There is no map to 270 for Democrats or Kamala Harris without the state of Pennsylvania. It would reason to believe, if you were just a political operative of, I don't know, minimal chops, that you're going to get some bump out of that.
Yeah.
Out of a guy who could carry, he's got a 65% approval rating. He won his election by huge numbers. He's doing all of the things that you would want in a general election to be competitive. And if you put Pennsylvania in the bank, then you're kind of playing with dealers' money. You only have to win one of the 3 Rust Belt states. If you go out west and you pick off a Nevada or an Arizona, 2 states that Joe Biden won in 2020, all of a sudden, again, it's house money. Without Pennsylvania, there is no path. And so if you're looking at it from a Democratic operative standpoint, you're like, what are the scenarios where you would ignore an obvious political windfall and instead take a 60-something-year-old, career politician who's a Bernie Sanders acolyte from a state that your party hasn't lost in a presidential election since 1972.
Yeah.
Van helpfully answered that for us. The darker parts of the Democratic Party. And if you listen to the Ruthless Variety program, what we've been talking about for 9 months now is that there is a constituency within the Democratic Party for Hamas.
And if you'd forgotten that, then look no further than a couple weeks ago when they showed up in D.C. spray painting "Hamas is here" all over any monument they could get their hands on. Just point blank, Hamas is here.
Yeah.
Whose charter says they want to kill every Jew on the planet Earth. Straight up, that is their constituency.
And remember her criteria for a vice president, which is hilarious. We shouldn't lose sight of the fact that Joe Biden's criteria for Kamala Harris as a vice president was entirely race-based and gender-based.
Yeah. He said, I'm going to pick a black woman.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Right? Which, like on a national stage with name recognition, she was a party of one. A party of one. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's how she was selected vice president. They did the same thing this time around, only it was we got to have a white male.
Yeah.
Right?
For the first time.
Yeah, and immediately every Democrat in politics was like, holy shit, is this my time to shine? Yeah. Like you saw Andy Bashir dusting off his jacket for the first time. He's like, holy smokes.
Not old enough. They found the oldest, whitest guy possible.
I mean, this guy is Wonder Bread with mayo and ice cream on top.
But that's the thing is they were hoping, because here's the thing is their agenda that with Kamala Harris, as we've been discussing, and I hope all of you have been discussing with your neighbors, with your friends, loved ones, Kamala is extremely far left. She was the furthest left center to the left of Bernie Sanders. Her agenda is horrific. So they thought that like, oh, you know, if we bring in Wilford Brimley, we can pull the wool over their eyes. But
right.
Wilford Brimley, this guy is not.
It's Wilford Brimley if he was Karl Marx.
Exactly.
I mean, that's basically what this guy is. And because he's kind of a sleepy governor in the middle of the country, people haven't paid attention to what it is that this guy's doing. But he's off the left-hand side of the map. If you have any question about that, look who is most excited. And I think you're the one, Duncan, who talked a little bit about this. Who was most excited about this nomination?
Yeah. Can we put up graphic number 1, Spaghetti? Okay, so this is the DSA. This is the Democratic Socialists of America. If you aren't familiar with who that is.
It's kind of in the title.
It's in the title.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're thrilled of this selection. I'll just quote from the first tweet. Harris choosing Walz as a running mate has shown the world that DSA and our allies on the left are a force that cannot be ignored. Through collective action, DSA and the U.S. left more broadly have made it clear that change is needed. DSA members organized in our workplace, blah, 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 blah. And then some shit about Palestine, you know? So,
I mean, that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
It's saying the thing. And then can we put it right? Can we put it back up again? Because here's where they give away the game in the follow-up tweet. That they mentioned that they pressured the, quote, Democrat establishment into choosing a new candidate and backing down from a potential VP with direct ties to the IDF and who would have ferociously supported the ongoing genocide in Palestine.
Oh, there it is.
So Josh Shapiro, like the number 1 draft pick for the Democrats from the swing state they absolutely have to win, he's not acceptable to Democratic Socialists because he happens to be a Jewish American.
I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
They're just saying it.
It's just like you said it earlier, but like this, you don't have to be a seasoned political operative to see this is a paint by numbers exercise.
Yeah.
It's like not only is Josh Shapiro from that swing state, not only have great poll numbers, he's also fantastic on the stump. I don't know if you've seen him.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and he's charismatic. And
no, he would have been a problem.
I mean, he would have been a problem.
Yeah.
Like Van Jones is right, 100% right. Like we said it publicly. Like the one guy we were the most scared of is if they pick Josh Shapiro.
I know a bunch of groups that are supportive of Donald Trump in this election that were all scheduled to go in and do a bunch of polling in the event that Josh Shapiro was going to be the nominee in Pennsylvania to figure out if there was still a path.
Yeah.
Like, that was the mindset.
Yeah, you could lock down the state for the Democrats.
That was the mindset of the right to try to carve a different path that doesn't include Pennsylvania, to not waste treasure there, basically, if they picked this guy and locked it down. Well, I mean, these are the most ecstatic people in the business.
Right.
on Tuesday.
And along those lines, I thought it was really hilarious. So, I mean, the media is going to be the media. But this clown, John Harwood, who I think CNBC laid off years ago, but he's still on Twitter acting like he's a journalist. He sends out this tweet because there was this article that came out saying that like Republican operatives are overjoyed that Josh Shapiro is not the VP candidate and that it's Walz. And then Harwood's take is like, who are these operatives? Not a single one is named. There is no Republican operative thrilled. This table, everyone.
Literally everyone.
Let me just tell
every
you,
Republican
as a-
operative coast to coast is thrilled.
Let me tell you, as a Republican operative who associates in Republican operatives circles, we have a fair amount of friends who do this for a living. We're overjoyed,
Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
We're overjoyed because that would have made it a lot more difficult. Instead, we picked a socialist from Minnesota with a record 10 miles long. That the great knock on Kamala Harris are twofold. One, she's an idiot and she doesn't have any idea what she's doing. I think that's true, and you can just kind of see that. But second, when she tries to figure it out, it's always off the left-hand side of the map. She has an ideological problem with the center of the electorate. And if you look at, I don't care if it's economy, education, healthcare, crime, you name it, the Trump-Vance ticket is more ideologically positioned to the center of that electorate than anything that's can come out of Kamala Harris's mouth in 8 years. And they know that. And so part of the white guy thing
That's it.
was to try to just sort of fake that.
Yeah, it's just like branding.
But
you know?
but it's so cynical and ridiculous as all
Yeah.
white guys are like, oh, I'm going to ignore the socialism.
Right.
I'm going to ignore what you did in COVID. I'm going to ignore all of the ridiculous stuff that Tim Walz has actually done because he's a white guy and he says like, gruff stuff.
And that's the thing. To me, it really irks me is the cynicism of the left on this exact topic, where they're like, if we can divide everyone by race, ideology, whatever, if we just break down your skin color, then we can divide people against each other and pick off votes that way. It's just the most cynical, un-American thing possible, and this is another example.
Ruthless is sponsored by BetterHelp. Look, social media can make things stressful these days. Whether you're arguing with somebody on Twitter about the election, or you're laying in bed and your wife is showing you pictures of her best friend's vacation in Hawaii. It's a stressor for a lot of folks. And sometimes it's helpful to have someone to talk to about what you want and keep you focused on how to live your best life, rather than fixating on others. Talking through your goals gives you clarity and can help you keep attention on what really matters. If you're looking to be the best version of yourself, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp offers entirely online therapy designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your busy schedule. You simply fill out a brief questionnaire and you're matched to a licensed therapist. Once you're matched with a therapist, they will reach out to you and ask you a few questions to get to know you better. From there, you can talk to your therapist by live chat, phone, or video call. It's that easy. Stop comparing and start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/ruthless today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/ruthless.
Here's just a little sampling of what Democrats are trying to do with Walz. Because it's not just simply, we're going to pick a white guy and hope that you identify with white guys, which is kind of what they view. But they also kind of like his style.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is all about vibes for them. She hasn't done a single interview in 18 days. Hasn't answered a question in 18 days of being the nominee for the Democratic Party, a position for which she got 0 votes, I might add.
Yep.
Right? I mean, saving democracy and all. This is why they actually like. Let's play clip number 3.
When it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make.
Okay.
Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule. Mind your own damn business.
Oh, there's a hardcore
Yeah. Oh,
guy.
yeah.
And what they're trying to get at, I'll get to the substance of it in a second, but what they're trying to get at with like the mind your own damn business type thing is like, this is just one of the dudes.
Yeah, he's just a hockey dad from the Midwest.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is just one of the guys.
So this line of attack that they've been trying to roll out, this like mind your own damn business, it reminds me of there's like, a lot of the more libertarianish leaning Republicans, conservatives are like, I just wish I would be left alone. Well, the left is on the march. They are demanding it's their way or the highway. When you have one group that's demanding to get what they want by any means necessary, and the other who's like, I just want to be left alone, who do you think wins in that scenario?
Right.
So they're trying to trick everyone of like, oh, just mind your own business. Don't keep an eye on what we're up to. When he's talking about the Republicans want to take over your doctor's office, what happened to if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor?
Right.
Like bit by bit, they want to take every freedom you had. You used to be able to choose your doctor. Now Kamala's at the point where she has said numerous times when she was running for president, when she was actually a primary candidate, saying, I want to get rid of private health insurance.
I'm going to put your private doctor out of business. And then also this Tim Walz guy, like brass balls for this guy to talk about mind your own business when during COVID he made a snitch hotline for or neighborly things, right?
Neighborlies.
To snitch on each other.
Yeah.
He was like,
this
if
is
you
a
see
guy
your
who
neighbor
wanted-
leave their house, call this hotline.
No, that was literally
That
it.
was
I'm not
literally
kidding.
it.
That
Yeah.
was actually what he was doing.
If you left your house
Yeah.
to go walk your dog, here's a state hotline in which state troopers will respond to.
And snitch.
So you can snitch out your neighbor for not following the governor's guidelines, all of which, in retrospect, were not only wrong, they were devastating to communities, children, next generation, businesses, everything. I mean, meanwhile, they're burning Minneapolis down. We'll get to all of that in a minute. But I think the other piece of this that is really important to focus on is that tone. Mind your own damn business. Like it's just one of the dudes.
Yeah.
Right? Which I understand the appeal.
It is.
It's
a
certainly
good-
in contrast to Kamala Harris, who
Yeah.
absolutely thinks spent the entirety of her political career hanging out in like a Georgetown cocktail party, laughing because she doesn't have anything to add substantively. But like that's her MO. And so you need like a mind your damn business type guy.
The guy's going to give it to you straight.
Like a guy who's just hanging out with his buddies. Well, here's the problem with Tim Walz. If you're listening to this, if you're a man and you're a family guy and you got your dudes, you hang out. How many times are you hanging out with your buddies and you're like, yeah, let's just let's have a cold one, just relax here at the end of the day. What's on my mind? I want to figure out how we get tampons in high school men's bathrooms. That's just one of the dudes, right? Hey, buddy, I got this dilemma. Fuck, can you pass me the cold one? You got a cigarette? Awesome, cool. I'm wondering how it is that we can make sure that 6-year-olds have access to gender reaffirmation. Yeah. I want to make sure that our state is a sanctuary state for prepubescent kids to change their gender.
And can I say that tampon Tim hit because it was even elementary schools. He wanted it in boys' elementary school bathrooms. He wanted it in boys' middle school bathrooms. Yeah. Tampons. So when Republicans start calling him out on this, everyone starts calling him Tampon Tim. It hits because they know every American thinks that is nonsense, right?
Yeah.
The vast majority of Americans, 99%, will think that is absolute nonsense, doesn't make sense. Hillary Clinton goes out and puts a tweet and says that, like, just because Tim Walz wanted to have tampons available for students. Because she knows if she says he put it in boys' rooms in elementary school, everyone will be like, this guy's insane.
Yeah, and so her blind, like, partisan followers are like, he wants feminine care.
Yeah.
Like, why do you object to that? A war on women.
That's
No, it's not the women he's concerned about.
Yeah.
Right? It's the dudes that are, or the chicks that are now dudes. I don't know
It's
what
the
it is.
men can menstruate, you got to
Yeah, it's the menstruating men.
He's just one of the guys.
It's just one of the dudes. But that's my point, is this whole thing is just a complete facade. There is no, like, run-of-the-mill person who sits around with their boys and is like, oh, man, you know what we need, dog? We need to make sure that we ration care during health emergencies based on race.
Yeah, he really believed
You know what I mean? Because we've had it really, really good as white dude. What we need to make sure of is that, like, the person who's suffering upper respiratory illness is graded the same in terms of their ability to get care as somebody who, I don't know, they're born black. Like, that's what that man did. That is straight up what they did. And, like, if you don't have a problem with that, I'll never be able to relate to you. It's the whole thing where it's like, oh yeah, white dudes for Kamala. Well, we're told they have black dudes for Kamala too. Also told, reassured, They're separate but equal.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? I mean, it's taken our country back like 70 years. All of this thinking that they're doing through this socialist, progressive, Marxist type view, and they think by having a dude show up who's like, mind your own damn business, that we're all not going to pay any attention to it.
It's divide and conquer. And by saying mind your own business, what they really mean is turn the other way while we take over.
It is so funny, though. Like, Ashbrook always says, you know, these reporters act like they're covering zoo animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, there's a quality to that sort of breathless coverage now about Tim Walz. Like, you would think they never met somebody from the Midwest.
Yeah.
Like, all of this shtick is like the first time they've ever come across somebody who's like, I like to hunt and fish.
Yeah.
You know, and they act like this is like, wow.
Look at this guy.
Look at this.
Do you have binoculars? We need to see. Is that
nobody in politics has ever said any of this.
My God.
The courage of this man.
My God, he's got beech nut in his pocket. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
I mean,
it really
it tells you a lot about like the social circles of a lot of the journalist class in this country. You know,
And also, it's that their social circle so overlaps with Democrat operatives that when Democrat operatives, because these are people who grew up in like Brooklyn, who have never been to the Midwest in their lives, who think hunting is disgusting, who think no one should be allowed to eat meat because
but they
it's killing the
understand
planet.
that they're going to need votes from them, so they're like, how do we pat these fuckers on their head?
That's it.
Like, how do we do that? Oh, I know.
They're like, oh, he's relatable. No, he's not.
I know. I've got an old pasty white guy.
Yeah.
Who believes in all the same things that we do. He just doesn't sound like us.
I saw these reporters talking about how the Kamala campaign put out a camo like hunting hat.
Oh God!
After the
I saw
Walz
this.
announcement,
Yeah, and he tossed it
and
on.
everybody's like, "Wow, so brilliant, so smart." It's like, can you imagine
The patronizer.
like a guy in the Midwest during deer season in a blind putting that shit on? I if someone could get me one for free, honestly, I'd send it to my uncle as a goof.
Also, just think about the analog for any other group of Americans.
Yeah.
You know, like, what are you gonna do? Like, pour a Chardonnay glass to the top and be like, "Hey, I'm a woman. Like, vote for me." I mean, dude, it's so absurd. It's stereotypical. It's ridiculous. But it also just, their whole goal in what they tried to do on Tuesday night when they rolled him out was have high energy. They did that.
Yeah.
They tried to have great optics. They did that. They succeeded. And if you listen to every one of those speeches, not a single one of them talked about what it is that they believe in at all. And that's by design, for the same reason they haven't done any interviews for 18 days. They don't actually want to tell you. Good news is, we know. Right? We know. And it's incumbent upon us, Trump campaign, anybody who's right of center, to go talk to your neighbors and tell them, like, listen, do you really know what they're up to? Like, it ain't all vibes here. Like, what they're going to do is try to change this country in an unrecognizable way to the point where you have to ask the government's permission to do absolutely anything in this country. Like, that's what they're trying to do.
It's funny. It's like, Biden stepping aside gave the entire media and the American people that, like, Men in Black thing, and we just all have amnesia now, and they're just running like a choice election.
Yeah.
When in reality, it's a referendum on the last 4 years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
As if the number two.
Right. As if she's not in the second most important position in power in the world, and the world's on fucking fire.
Right.
And so their entire campaign is going to be about branding and how quirky she is and how direct and Midwestern he is, and not a single thing about the horrific things they've done to this country. I mean, like, we could keep going on Tim Walz. I mean, this fucking guy tried to mandate the vax for college
Hold on,
kids.
let's play some clips. Here, this is his take on border walls. Let's play clip 4 of that.
And I think seeing a plan that's out there, talking about it with folks, knowing that he's not going to do anything. He talks about this wall. I always say, let me know how high it is. If it's 25 feet, then I'll invest in the 30-foot ladder factory. That's not how you stop this.
Oh,
Okay.
Cool.
oh my God! Heaven forbid the United States of America erect some kind of a border wall to have a sovereign state. I mean, a 25-foot wall, and I'll invest in a 30-foot ladder company. Okay, Tim. Now I know where your priorities are.
Yeah.
I get it. It makes a ton of sense.
Now, that can't be true, though, Holmes, because Kamala put out that ad last week about how she wants to secure the border and Donald Trump doesn't.
But, okay, so, all right, maybe he's on MSNBC. Maybe he got a little carried away.
Yeah.
Maybe the top of the Chardonnay actually happened, got to the rim. He and his wife didn't split it tonight. He took it down himself. And so maybe, maybe it's out of his wits. So how did he govern? Like, I don't know. How did he govern? Let's take a look. Sanctuary state. Governor Tim Walz gave illegal immigrants taxpayer-funded healthcare, tuition, and driver's licenses.
Oh.
Interesting. So while you're doing all that and you're saying you'd have the 30-foot ladder if you have a 25-foot wall, at the same time you're providing the Minnesota taxpayer, the people who are paying taxes, you're taking that money and you're giving it to illegal immigrants for health care and then giving them driver's license and tuition. I forgot that one. Tuition.
Yeah.
And tuition. You have a state-funded school system that you're now taxpayers are subsidizing people who don't live not only in the state but not in this country.
Criminals. Your property taxes going towards housing, providing health care, shelter, comfort to criminals.
Yeah. How many Midwest dads support all that bullshit? Zero. You know? Like, that's the thing. There's the brand, and then there's the reality that we have to push out there.
I mean, he made these pieces of that I just discussed like central components to his agenda, like making sure that healthcare, driver's license, and free college tuition.
I mean, well, he should be in jail. As someone whose mother has been in 2 car accidents, hit by illegal aliens twice. Here's the thing: is you can try issuing them driver's licenses. Guess what? They don't have auto insurance. Because you can't buy auto insurance in this country for not a citizen. Surprise, surprise.
Well, you've just given him a new agenda.
Yeah.
You
Don't
just
give them any
away.
ideas, pal.
That's a new agenda. But I mean, we laugh. It's not true. I mean, they will do that.
They'll do it.
I mean,
will do that. What's
they-
the difference between health insurance and, I mean, health insurance is 8 times more expensive than auto insurance. Throw it in.
Yeah.
Throw it in, Tim Walz, you son of a bitch.
In Washington, D.C. and in New York City, they allow illegal aliens already to vote in municipal elections. Think about that. They're already extending it. They're just, like I said, everything they do, they just try to push the envelope, and they tell you, mind your own damn business. They push the envelope some more. This is a guy who's giving them an education that you pay for, that you're paying for housing, healthcare. Think about everyone in Minnesota who's had it rough during these years of sky-high inflation. No one's helped them out. It's the same way that the Dems have had working-class Americans pay for the college education for these coastal assholes who get like a PhD in basket weaving and journalism and are like, well, who's going to pay for my college education? How about the working class members of this country?
Yeah, other than a couple of things socked away in the closet, they've never added any value to the American public whatsoever.
It's unbelievable.
And yet somebody who's out making a living with their hands is subsidizing all of that. That's absolutely what's happening.
That's what's happening.
It's happened to the people of Minnesota for quite some time. They want that for the rest of the country. He applauded state efforts, by the way, to pull troops off the border. When we're having a border crisis.
That is something to, yeah.
Think about that.
Applauding that.
Why would you applaud something like that? Either you have security or you don't, and you don't want the security. Oh, wait, hold on. Maybe that makes more sense in the context of everything else. You mentioned the aggressive lockdowns.
Yeah.
In the snitch line. Mm-hmm. That was absolutely true. After George Floyd was murdered by a Minneapolis cop, this is according to the New York Post, Walz sat by and watched his state's largest city, Minneapolis, burn, while Harris raised money online to bail out rioters. I think we've got a clip of JD doing something similar on that. Do you have clip 5 anywhere handy, Spaghettis?
This is a guy who's proposed shipping more manufacturing jobs to China, who wants to make the American people more reliant on garbage energy instead of good American energy, and has proposed defunding the police just as Kamala Harris does. I think it's interesting, actually. They make an interesting tag team because, of course, Tim Walz allowed rioters to burn down Minneapolis in the summer of 2020, and then the few who got caught, Kamala Harris helped bail them out of jail. So it is more instructive for what it says about Kamala Harris, that she doesn't care about the border. She doesn't care about crime. She doesn't care about American energy. And most importantly, she doesn't care about the Americans who have been made to suffer under those policies.
Be careful, everybody. J.D. Vance found a swing here.
Yeah.
Everybody was quick to write this dude off. All of a sudden, that feels a lot like the barrel of the bat to me.
Yeah. And like I said, as soon as they announced Walz, and Walz said that, like, J.D. Vance doesn't know anything about small town America, I was like, this guy.
Oh,
yeah.
JD's going to shellac this clown, and he's already getting started. But, like, further along the lines of how Walz let Minneapolis burn, it's beyond that. He sent out his kid to send tweets saying that, like, my dad's not going to allow the National Guard in, guys. You can keep going. Can you imagine that?
That happened.
Being like, My dad won't send in the National Guard. Keep burning.
They were applauding it.
Yeah.
It's just disgusting.
It's completely disgusting. Meanwhile, she was on TV at the time basically saying, we're not going to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, the city was burning to the ground.
Yeah, she was on...
She was encouraging.
She was on Colbert
Yeah.
talking about they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. This is a movement.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like this is what
And
they are rewarding. This is the core constituency that they are seeking to represent if they were in the White House. What they're talking about are criminals, illegal immigrants, folks who are wreaking havoc on communities, burning cities to the ground, burning a full precinct, police precinct literally to the ground.
And when we're saying burn to the ground, I saw this video clip. I'm sure we're going to start seeing it in ads. Of a veteran put this out, and he was like, "This is from my time in Iraq." No, actually, this is in Minneapolis after a riot. And let me tell you, it looked like the surface of the moon. We're
Yeah.
talking about nothing but ash, burned out cars, burned down buildings, and it was on Tim Walz's watch. And him and his family applauded and enabled it.
And you know, you're gonna also in the next 48 hours, whatever, you're gonna see the media trying to cover up a lot of this shit. And they're doing this on like his whole bio. There's some stuff on the stolen valor area that we'll get to here.
Yeah.
But before we get to that, like on the National Guard stuff, he put it off as long as he could before calling them in. Let the city burn. And that's not us saying it. It's the Democrat mayor of Minneapolis.
Jacob Fry, the Democratic mayor.
Jacob Fry.
Yeah.
If you don't remember him, picture like he looks a lot like Ossoff, that senator from Georgia.
Or if you don't know who that is, picture the guy who in your dorm
Yeah.
in college who read a lot of books, had the big horn-rimmed
Yeah.
glasses, basically was...
And we'd be like, "Is that beer in your backpack?
Yeah,
Is that a case? That's a big
Yeah.
rectangle."
Yes.
That guy.
The guy who's like, I dreamed to be an RA and bust everybody else. And he probably has like wine in his freshman dorm, which like nobody should have in college.
Yeah.
Drink a fucking beer.
Yeah.
Like he's one of those guys, acts snooty and better than everyone.
Yeah, not even the old white Zin.
Yeah.
It's actually like a nice bottle of Chardonnay.
He's got a cab, big cab.
Big cap.
And he's mad at you for having a bad palate.
Yeah.
But he goes on camera and shows the text messages of asking for the National Guard to be deployed in Minneapolis and the governor's office rebuffing them.
The biggest problem that you have with Walz is not only his ideological proclivities, which we've outlined here, but it's also what you get with a runaway left, like a really amoral runaway left, is anytime narratives take hold in the national media that is a far left deal, they have absolutely no sense of leadership within themselves. They just run with it. And consequences be damned. You can think back to things like the Me Too movement, right? Where obviously like Harvey Weinstein's in the world and whatever, that's terrific. But like it started enveloping just this mass sort of almost like McCarthy-esque pointing at random people, accusing them of horrible things, maligning their character, and guys like this just sort of sat back. If you look at like what happened during the George Floyd riots when it was happening in his state, same thing goes, right? Instead of trying to like de-escalate the situation and provide opportunity for some facts to come out, he just rode the wave, just like Kamala Harris did, because it was benefiting his political point of view. So who the hell cares if it burns down the largest city in Minneapolis? It's part of what makes politics good for me. So I'm just going to do it. And like immediately thereafter, within COVID, there was this big rush from the left to try to get like state and local aid, right? And like, oh, how dare Republicans not just flush states and localities with money because they've got to do important things, and they brand them with things called like hero pay, right? Hero pay. You guys will all remember this. Hero pay was like a pretty good idea that had first-line workers when nobody knew what COVID was or how terrible it was, but they were forced into action to deal with hospitals. At the time, people thought risking their own lives to do it, and it like made sense. Like these people should be paid more than your average salary if they're literally just volunteering to risk their lives at the time. Great, so let's throw it under that. What happened with Tim Walz with hero pay to frontline pandemic workers? An audit found that 60% of recipients definitely qualified for the money, meaning 40% of the hero pay had absolutely nothing to do with the people who were doing the work.
I'm sure they were heroes in spirit. You know,
I mean,
they
like,
were probably
40%.
they're probably like putting the candle out the window. Remember, like the applauding at 8 p.m. every night.
Yeah.
I bet they did a lot of applause.
Yeah, I
And
bet that's
they
right.
probably deserve
Triple masked.
the hero pay.
Hero triple masked in their own car.
Yeah.
If they could go outside. I don't know, the snitch line was
Snitch
for that,
line.
something like that. But then he had a nonprofit called Feeding Our Future, was allowed without oversight to fleece the State Department of Education out of $250 million. It's the largest fraud in the history of the state. It diverted from children to luxury goods for the nonprofit's leaders.
Hold on.
This happened on his watch.
This is his nonprofit?
Yeah. Walz himself had text messages mysteriously vanish in violation of public records laws.
Oh.
Yeah.
It sounds like Hillary's server.
All of this is, again, according to the New York Post, all of this had been amply reported in the Minneapolis, Minnesota media. The national press doesn't even need to investigate Walz. It's out there. It's already out there. It needs to just be read into the coverage by its own local print and TV affiliates. Of course, that's not going to happen. But look, look, does it get worse than that?
What a piece of garbage.
What a piece of garbage. Now you get it, right? I mean, this is not just me. There's a Minnesota element to this, but it's like this guy's a scumbag. He's an absolute scumbag. And we talked a little bit about, look, after his party took a one-seat majority in the state Senate, he embraced nearly every insane idea they rammed through the legislature. I mentioned the driver's license for illegal aliens, the marijuana, voting rights for convicted felons, stricter gun laws, permanent mailing of ballots for people who sign up just once to vote by mail. Like all of the things that you would do if you were the left-hand side of the map, he had one seat and just kind of like pushed her all through. This is what happens.
So
I just want to be very clear about this.
Yeah.
Mind your own damn business. That is an effort to try to relate to you enough where you're not going to actually ask questions. But if they got into power, all of the shit that I read to you that's happened to Minnesota is going to happen in spades to the United States of America.
Yeah, like just to put a finer point on it, there's people who were arrested, obviously, in 2020 during those riots that burned down Minneapolis. Kamala Harris raises the money to bail out these people, violent people, people who reoffended, including people who committed murder. And so one of those people who committed murder, they could be able to vote, because of this governor.
Yeah.
The people who burned down the city now get to vote.
Well, if they didn't get out from Kamala,
Yeah.
they actually had one of the unfortunate few who didn't get part of that bail fund.
Maybe they can fire that bail fund up, like right before Election Day. Do a voter registration
Well,
drive.
it sounds like they'll mail the ballots right to the prison now, thanks to Tim Walz.
This line is insane. It says Walz signed a law mandating, quote, anti-racist education in, quote, ethnic studies in elementary, middle, and high schools, and compelling critical race theory training for teachers while forcing schools, think how insane this is, forcing schools to record the race of every student who is given recess detentions to prevent, quote, institutional racism.
Think about that.
Meanwhile, nearly half of the state's public school students can't read at grade level.
Think about that.
Their priority is to be like, let's think if about an anti-race. Let's put a race agenda in your elementary schools. Let's make teachers write down, divide all the kids up by race. Like, who thinks this is normal in any way? This is, number one, this is brain rot to divide this country, break this country from hundreds of years of being
It's the kind
beacon
of
for
thing-
the planet. And then to be like, half the kids can't even read. What the hell's going on with the priorities in this place?
But it's the kind of thing that, honestly, if you looked at those policies and you were like, yeah, this is Bull Connor's agenda from 1955,
Yeah, right.
you'd be like, oh, yeah, it
That makes
totally
sense.
checks.
Makes sense.
That totally checks.
I don't think he was in favor of puberty blockers for 9-year-olds.
Well,
but
that's where it takes a hard turn, right? Because that Walz made a Minnesota a quote-unquote refuge. His words, refuge for taxpayer-funded transgender surgeries on minors. There is not a lot of things that get me going more than something like that. I mean, that is a taxpayer-funded transgender surgery on minors, irreversible. We know what the statistics are.
this is the most demonic shit ever.
I mean, but this is if you were to take Like, we all know Democrats. You don't know Democrats like this. Like, you don't know I'm telling you, as crazy as you think your neighbor is, who's got like the BLM flag out, I'm not sure they're on board with this.
That's like entry level of this guy. This guy is that nuts.
And plus, it's not at all scientific. And really, the mask came off during COVID when they were saying, oh, well, you got to stay in your house and double mask. But if you're protesting, racial injustice, you can go outside and be in a large group. Then COVID can't kill you. Yep. But like this stuff, like surgeries on minors, like they banned this in the UK.
Yeah.
And
well, if you're a developed country, this is the kind of thing that when I was in grad school or in elementary school, they would teach you about the hardships of people in Africa who underwent things like gender mutilation.
Yeah,
and they would say, like, this is the worst possible thing that anybody could do to children. It's taxpayer subsidized on this guy's watch.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going on. They had a $17.5 billion budget surplus, blew through it in a year.
1 year.
Blew through it in a year. Meanwhile, we talk a lot about defunding the police. This guy had an awful lot to do with the tip of the spear on that and fanned flames within Minneapolis and within this larger national movement to suggest the cops are somehow the worst of the worst and that they're the problem, not the criminals.
Mm-hmm.
He did this. So how did it work out? I mean, you could say, like, did the guy pass a bill called defund the police? And that's what, like, PolitiFact would land on. Well, he never passed a bill called PolitiFact or called defund the police.
Yeah.
But, so it's fact-free. But what happened was Minneapolis lost 40% of its police force since 2020.
40%.
Think about that. 40%. I mean, if where you live right now, almost half of the cops just couldn't go back to work because they didn't feel like their employer would back them. It wasn't a line of work that they were interested in doing, that they felt like if you ever tried to actually enforce the law, that you, not the criminal, would be sent to prison. That's the environment that this guy fostered.
An environment that makes it worse for the minority communities that he pretends to care about. Because if you look at any of the polls and surveys of the policing in communities, Black and brown communities, especially ones who happen to be poor, they want cops on the streets. They want the laws enforced. They don't like criminal gangs running around their community causing trouble. It's the white liberals who live in gated communities in the suburbs who think they know better than everyone, and they don't have to reap any of the damage that's done by policies like this. These are the Tim Walzes of the world. That's it. Everybody else is their fucking liberal experiment, and they don't have to live with any of the consequences of it.
So spending $17.5 billion in surplus wasn't enough to have an inflationary problem and a hardship on Minnesota families. He also raised gas sales, payroll, car licenses, and online delivery taxes and fees to pay for all of it. Raised taxes on all of this,
this is the most regressive tax policy, like, humanly possible.
That's not true. That's just
boat
neighborly.
Registrations. Let me just tell you.
Boat registrations?
Let me just tell you.
How did he get away with that in Minnesota?
I have no idea.
It's the land of 1,000 lakes. How do you defend this?
The only thing I can possibly say is that Republicans are so beaten down by not winning there for so long that there wasn't like an immediate impeachment hearing. The idea that you have boat registration fees doubled.
I mean,
where are my boys on that?
Yeah.
Where are you guys on that?
Where's Minnetonka?
Huh?
Yeah, I mean,
they, by the way, are the ones that told me months ago that their kids, like, they have high school age kids, that their kids started calling them Tampon Tim.
Nice.
Did they? Good
Yeah,
for
it wasn't them. It was
Yeah.
they were like, they learned the nickname from their kid. The kids all called Governor Tampon Tim.
Good.
Yeah. Good for them.
It's good to hear that because it means, maybe the kids are all right.
Well, listen, these guys are raising their kids right.
Yeah.
There's no question about
When
that.
you said that Walz raised gas, sales, payroll, car licenses, online delivery taxes and fees, this is maybe why Kamala picked him, is because they're completely aligned on this. When she said that, like, I need to raise taxes on everything, we need to tax the oil industry into the ground, he's like, sounds good.
Very funny to have a huge budget surplus in the billions and then blow all through it and be like, I guess got to raise taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just nuts. $17.5 billion.
Just hanging out with the boys, watching a little NFL, drinking some beer. Hey, buddy, let's make sure we raise double those taxes so we can play for tranny surgeries.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Just one of the guys.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nonsense. And this is the way that liberals operate. They actually don't want you to know. Everything about the way that it's not just Kamala Harris, it's the Democratic Party writ large, the liberal movement writ large, progressive writ large. The way that they operate is they don't ever want to actually tell you what it is that they're going to do. They don't, because they know you're going to object to that. What they try to do is get people who are like, yeah, I'm just one of the guys, all good. And then they get in and they do the shit that we just covered. That's what his record is. So, like, whatever you think about the way he presents on stage, and he seems like likable or seems like he's just sort of a Midwestern dad. I don't know anyone that I grew up with in Minnesota who has these values. Not one person.
And when they pull that bullshit, like, actually, you should be insulted. Because they think you're fucking dumb.
Yep,
They think you're dumb, and they can pull the wool over your eyes and make you think because this guy talks like a Midwesterner that he is one. And
If there is anything that drives you to go sign up to volunteer, that drives you to give $5 online at the Trump website or your local Republican, this is the shit that does it. They think so little of you that they think by putting some dude up who's a white guy who says, mind your own damn business, that is enough to overlook what is the most left-wing record I've ever seen in this country.
Yeah.
The idea that they have this on a national stage, like people in Vermont would be like, holy shit, you got away with that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Bernie Sanders endorsed him for VP.
Yeah.
I mean, that says it in and of itself.
It says it all. It says it all. Now, I want to play the guy who's getting this. He's like, took a lot of shit in his first couple of weeks because the media immediately pounced on J.D. Vance.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, people were conjecturing about, is he the right pick? I don't know if he's the right pick for Trump, this, that, and the other thing. If you've watched what's happened over the last 72 hours, you've watched a guy do what we talked about in Milwaukee. He gets it intrinsically. He's got a high political IQ because he is one of us in a lot of ways. And now that he's got something, a target here, a political opponent, he's just firing on all cylinders. Look at this clip at what happened yesterday in the tarmac in Wisconsin when he landed in the same place. I think it was Eau Claire, landed in the same place as Kamala Harris.
Guys, how are you? Hi. So I know you're covering the vice president here. I figured I'd come by and one, just get a good look at the plane. Hopefully it's going to be my plane in a few months. But I also thought you guys might get lonely because the vice president doesn't answer questions from reporters and hasn't for 17 days. Have they given you guys an explanation for why she won't take questions from reporters? No? Nobody? Okay, great. Well, I hope that she changes her mind because it'd be good for the American people, and I think it'd be good for you all if she actually ran a real campaign instead of one from a basement with a teleprompter. So have a good one, guys. See ya.
I love that. And if you're audio only and it was sort of hard to listen to that, let me just summarize it for you. J.D. Vance walks over to, I guess, Air Force Two, where Kamala Harris is, the official plane of the vice president.
As her motorcade is loading up.
Yeah, as her motorcade is loading up. And he's rolling deep. Got a lot of guys. And he strolls on over and he's like, well, I want to check out the plane because it probably be mine soon, which is just like alpha move. Then he goes to a bunch of journalists who are just sitting there silently with microphones out. And, of course, they're lonely because Kamala doesn't come out to answer questions. She's been the nominee, for now 3 weeks, and she's never held a press conference. She doesn't answer questions from journalists. And he goes there and he bullies them. He bullies them, and which is what I really appreciate because what he's doing is he's like, don't you have any respect for yourself?
Yeah, dude.
Don't you have any respect for yourself? You're sitting here on this tarmac outside of a fucking airplane.
You call yourself journalist?
You call yourself a journalist, and she doesn't even have the stones to come out and answer your question. You're sitting out here with this microphone. What a loser you are.
And you're going to rap out a process story about all the momentum that she has.
Yeah, she did great job. Great rollout, yada, yada, yada. And she doesn't even have the respect to show up and answer a question from you.
And then when he was like, are any of you going to ask why she hasn't talked to you guys in like 18 days? And they don't say a word.
No.
He's like, all right, well.
I mean, he just dominated him like an Appalachian lazy boy.
Yes.
I say that because it's funny. Here's the funny. That's the other piece of this. That's in trying to brand J.D. Vance. like there was this troll account that came out and said that somewhere in Hillbilly Elegy wrote about banging a couch.
Yeah.
And like, of course, it wasn't true.
Yeah.
It wasn't in the book. It's not true, period. But like they went with it to the point where Walz put it in his speech.
Yeah. Like a little,
Like
hat tip to it.
Like a hat tip to the couch in the speech. I happen to think it's hilarious. Like there's a lot of people get mad about it. JD would be hilarious if he just like rolled around with a couch.
Yeah.
Here's
Don't get mad, get even.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's so dumb and it's so ridiculous. But that's what they've got here. Like we just rolled through the last half an hour of hits about how this guy has underserved the community he was elected to represent. Yeah. JD, they're gonna have to make up something about a couch.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I saw this component is there was one, I think, NBC News journalist who was like, when Walz said that, who was like, this is demonstrably false lie, and some Republicans have brought up that if any Republican were to try to push this on a public figure, it'd be like instantly politifacted and then like marked as misinformation and whatever. And her reply, she got destroyed because they're like, do your job, shut up,
right,
and let us say whatever we want.
Spread disinformation for us. We're Democrats.
To the point where the vice presidential nominee is doing it from the podium in his announcement video. I mean, that's how far we've gone here.
Yeah.
Like they don't get mad. Don't get mad, because that's what's going to happen here. Like, you can talk about how unfair it is. We can complain about it. Or you can go volunteer. You can give $10. You can give your time. You can talk to your neighbor. You can do all these things, because that's really what's going to take. Ultimately, votes in the ballot box are going to make a hell of a lot of difference here. And my guess is like, this is fun for 3-4 weeks. Like, they're having a lot of fun with this. You can look at Democrats. They think it's like vibes, intuition, magic. Like, they've got it. They're all set. They don't think they're ever going to have to talk about any of the shit that we just talked about. And they certainly don't think that Kamala Harris is going to have to actually do an interview.
And that's the thing is, they are, just like JD said in that clip, like, she's going to be hiding in the basement. She's going to do the Biden playbook. These things that you've heard about Walz, that we have just told you, what he did in the state of Minnesota. It's not like this is what he could do. This is what he did. This is what he believes in. And then we have told you exactly what Kamala wants to do and has started to do. When we said that, Kamala said that she wants to ban all fracking, and then once Kamala and Biden were in the White House, what happened is they banned it all on federal lands. That's not land that belongs to the government. That's land that belongs to you, me, and all of us. That belongs to America. And they have stopped that and are now forcing you to buy expensive energy from overseas, right? They will do what they said. They are who we thought they are. They've said what they believe in. Tell your friends exactly what they've done, because that's what they're afraid of happening. They don't want to let journalists find out about it.
They don't.
When someone trolls and is like, man, that JD Vance is weird, be like, I don't know. I think puberty blockers for 9-year-olds is weird, and that's what weird. He supports.
I think having state-funded minor transgender surgery is weird.
Feels pretty
and that's
weird.
A fact, because they try to lie and say like no one wants
sort
that.
Of weird.
Yeah, tampons in a men's room feels weird.
I'm sorry, men's room, quote unquote, a boys' room.
Yeah,
because we're talking about school age children.
Could I be honest? If I was in like the 3rd grade and my buddies and I,
and
there were suddenly tampons in there, we would do the funniest shit with those tampons.
That's the other thing. It's like when people online were like, "This is the biggest waste of money," and then like you had Livs trying to be like, "What do you think is wrong with having sanitary products available in the boys' room?" They're like, have you ever been a child? Every single one of those is going to be thrown around within seconds.
Except you know that the schools will also be hip to this thing. So, like, you could, like, punch a teacher, and it's like, well, their aggression comes from the home, and it's okay.
Yeah.
But if, like, you take a tampon out, it's probably, like, automatic suspension.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
Because the lib school
and as long
thing
as they note the race of the child who took the tampon.
Yeah. That is a hate crime.
No, we already have that logged. We already have it logged.
It's a hate crime.
No, just remember the detention.
Yeah.
That was part of his thing. If you had detention, we'd have logged the race of the detention. Make sure we know. The kid who misbehaved, we have to know. Because if they're a black kid and there's too many black kids with detention, well, institutional racism, and we have to move in a different direction. I mean, these people. Anyway, so you get and there was also a little light stolen valor sprinkled in. A little light stolen valor in there. One thing, and Wolf on our squad has been particularly worked up about the fact, what was his title?
Command Sergeant Major.
He was a Command Sergeant Major. Yeah. And his regiment...
deployed to Iraq. Right before, they got the warning.
They deployed to Iraq. He was with this outfit running the outfit. I mean, that's basically the job. And they deployed to Iraq and immediately quit and ran for office.
Yeah.
Right. So JD Vance is on this and he's hitting this, and this is good stuff. Like, I tend not to. I mean, look, the guy served and I didn't, so I don't usually throw stones at this kind of thing. Right up until the point where he then does a gun control vignette.
Yeah.
Where he talks about weapons of war, like the weapons of war that I used in war.
Yeah.
Except he never went to war. So. Okay, I'm not going to criticize the guy's service at all, but I will say, if you're going to misrepresent your service on a public stage as big as this in an effort to try to ban Second Amendment rights for Americans, free game, brother.
Yep.
Free game. And, like, you got what you have coming on that. And by the way, can you imagine for a second if, like, J.D. Vance did that? If he misrepresented his service record in an effort to try to get some ideological thing the Democrats disagreed with?
I mean, I hope Walz doesn't hear about this, that everyone is starting to find out what a fraud he is. I want JD to just slam dunk him with this on that stage.
He's must-see TV.
Yeah,
this guy deserves to be just dismantled.
And we really do. I understand the sensitivity, Holmes, but like the media is going to try to retcon this entire thing. You know, what I was working on here on my phone was pulling up that Bloomberg is now stealth editing, you know, bio stories that they did about Walz and serving in Iraq, which he obviously didn't, and they changed the word Iraq to Italy as part of Operation Enduring Freedom.
Well, there's a difference in theater, shall we say.
Quite a bit different.
And the fact that they stealth edit it and don't put editor's note, we got this wrong.
You're telling me there are no IEDs in Napoli?
You're going to maybe catch a stray mozzarella to the face, huh?
Yeah, it is dangerous.
There's a cannoli, you know, you never know. Spaghetti's, it's a dangerous place from what I understand. And a lot of organized crime. But I'm not saying. I'm just saying. We love busting old spaghettis. All right, so we're going to get back to the questions that we always ask you. Remember, you got to like and subscribe. So like this as you're listening to it, subscribe to it. If you do, and you comment below on the question I'm about to ask you, we will read all of these things. We'll summarize and pick the best ones that we think are representative of the takes.
And remember, it's free to subscribe.
Yeah,
like, I know how it is on some websites that if you hit subscribe, you think it's going to cost you something. It doesn't cost you a penny on YouTube.
Does not cost you a penny for any of this. It's all free content, right, gentlemen?
That's right.
I know we're all comfortable with that.
Yeah.
We've been comfortable with that for 4 years. So this is from our hearts. The question is, what are Tim Walz's biggest weaknesses?
I love this question.
We just went through them. What do you think the biggest weakness in your community? You know, you relate to your neighbors. You know who's on the fence.
Yeah.
You know what sways them one way or another about these things. What do you think is the biggest weakness?
Honestly, this could be the best question we have asked because this is critical. We have a listenership that is extremely savvy. Like, it has great information flow.
Yeah, we're way over 7 figures for monthly downloads at this point. I mean, you guys are broad. Everyone's out there.
And to hear directly from folks who are engaged, who are fired up, who are going to be voting, what they see as Tim Walz's biggest weakness is that is valuable information.
Yeah.
Totally. First comment on the question, is the economy in trouble or is that a blip on the radar? Dunks.
Well, usually we go to Ashbrook here, but I'll try to add an additional heft to my baritone.
No, I appreciate that. You have a nice one.
Thank you.
Yeah. Unless you're singing with the madrigals, in which case it's like an alto or maybe a soprano.
No. It was mixed pairs singing. The sopranos were women. James.
Okay.
All right.
This comment comes from George McKenzie. George writes, being from Vermont, which is rarely recognized part of Appalachia, I don't think the recent economic news is a blip. Smug is completely correct in his analysis. Parenthetical, much as I hate to admit it.
That's good.
The most important thing to remember is that even if the inflation rate appears under control, the inflation of the past 3 years will never be undone. In general, prices will remain about where they are, in the best case, while wages are not catching up anytime soon. Trump needs to talk issues and make Harris pay for Bidenomics. P.S. Crooked media. Are you kidding me?
Talk about hiding in plain sight. Name says it all.
That was our blast on the pod, bros.
Yeah.
I love the PS. But his take, I mean, that's rock solid.
Yeah.
He's absolutely correct on all of that. Everybody, when you get these macroeconomic factors, they're like, well, inflation down this month. Down from what? It doesn't look like it did in 2020.
It's a rate of growth.
Yeah.
That's it. And so when he brings up this critical point of prices aren't going anywhere, they have done everything in their power to drive inflation up, which is why when you elect Donald Trump president again, you get a repeat of, it's not like a mystery of what happens. We've already seen what happened when he was president last time. You saw wage growth skyrocket. You saw housing affordability reach levels that it felt like everyone you know is trying to snap up a house. Imagine that for your kids.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it can be done. You can have an economy grow to outpace inflation, or you can be stuck with this mediocrity, which is what the Democrats think this country is.
100% right, Smug. What's our next one?
This is from David Nab, and David writes, I just bought a pickup truck and had to extend the loan past 60 months due to rising costs. I calculated that I'd be paying $50 less a month if the interest rates were still what they were under Trump. I hope to refinance when he gets control of the economy.
Jeez, it's just a real deal, David. I get it, man.
And that's the thing is, it's Americans who are doing what you're supposed to do. You go to work, you buy a house, you're paying your bills, who are being forced to underwrite all of the left's agenda. When you see the student loan forgiveness, these are the people who are paying for it.
Do you think that David's sitting around waiting for college football on Saturday with his buddies, wondering how to get tampons in a boys' bathroom?
That's the thing. Absolutely not.
Like, you're not.
Those
right?
are the people who under this economy and this administration have suffered.
Yep, absolutely. All right, the third comment from Alexandra Alfonsetti. I mean, I appreciate Spaghetti that you've got your people in here everywhere. This is terrific. I do not think that's a blip, she says. People are saying that it won't be too bad, but my family here in Michigan are feeling it. My dad was laid off because he's older, and in the auto industry company ran out of EV government money. We hear that a lot, by the way, guys. We've done segments on it. We'll do more in the future. It is a very, very real problem. My mom was also laid off from the law firm in Illinois due to no exact reason except she was remote. This is feeling a lot like 2002 and 2009 here in Michigan. Those are two times, obviously 2009 everyone felt. 2002, particularly Michigan with the auto industry, very, very difficult times. Not to mention the cost of childcare and the lack of options for houses. Also, our state taxes were raised, of course, because you got Whitmer there, right? Mm-hmm. I think it will get a lot worse if KH is elected. It's bad enough with Whitmer and the Democrats. God, you're just so right. It's just so right.
This economy is being felt by everyone, and the media is lying about it, saying that, best economy ever.
And also, like, look, hats off to people like you, Alexandra, who are still involved and still serious enough to listen to this program, other programs, get information, real spots, and try to do something about it. I know things are tough. Like, they've been tough for an awful lot of people. Democrats don't want to talk about any of that. You know what they have in mind. So it is incumbent upon people like this to do something about it, and I'm glad you are. Thank you, Alexandra, for the comment. Thanks for all of your comments. As I mentioned, we read absolutely every single one of them that comes in every episode, so like and subscribe. All right, so a rapid fire of variety here. The loss for the Hamas caucus.
Oh, no.
We've talked... But they had a big win on the VP,
Yeah.
so it kind of offsets.
Yeah, that's right.
Right? Cori Bush, she's probably the most racist person who's been elected in the last 40 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you don't remember the viral clip, she was the one who said, yeah, I hire private security and we're going to defund the police.
Yeah.
Like, she actually did the thing. It was like a caricature of what they believe. She
Yeah.
did that. That was hilarious.
She gave a run to Steve King on most racist member of the last 30 years, but she's out, and she was primaried in large part because of an effort by AIPAC and others who value the alliance that we have with Israel. Jewish Americans around the country were very concerned about the inroads that the Hamas caucus is making into American politics, particularly the Democratic Party. This is what they fight against. I do not blame them at all for working to try to primary. That is their central goal. You want to make sure that anti-Semitism doesn't have a root anywhere in this country. Hats off to you. Thank you for doing it. That's your mission. I'm so glad. From a Republican standpoint, the way that we look at Democratic primaries is entirely divorced from how Democrats look at Republican primaries.
Yep.
the way that we look at Democratic primaries is the thing that offends us most, the Elon Omars, the Cory Bushes, the, what was this nuts in New York that just got beat?
Jamal Bowman.
Jamal Bowman. Like everybody sort of gets engaged and wants to help on those things.
Because we're good-hearted and we want to improve the country, even if it's not our party.
Right. From an operative standpoint, the way that Democrats operate is that they take a look at that same exact situation. And they're like, how do we make sure that the most objectionable voice on the right is emblematic of the Republican brand so we can drag them all down and make them all seem like racist, psychopath, conspiracy theorist idiots? And they spend an enormous amount of money. Like Chuck Schumer, I think, was involved in like 9 different primaries last cycle to try to ensure that the worst Republican candidate, one that's not representative of their state at all, won their primary election and therefore either would be defeated or become emblematic of the Republican Party writ large, and you could brand all Republicans with this horrible stain. Now, Cory Bush is amongst the biggest headaches in the world for people like Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi because she says the thing out loud.
Yeah.
The thing that they're trying to do and the way that they view the world, they like to keep hidden under a mattress like Tim Walz.
Yeah, I would love her opinion of Tim Walz. Just tells the truth about him.
Right.
You know?
Right. Like, they like to keep this thing hidden.
Yeah.
Cory Bush wouldn't allow that.
Yeah.
She was just going to straight up say, like, I don't like Jews.
Yeah,
she would basically just come out and say it. And in fact, in her concession speech, she said as much. Be like, well, now you've taken the shackles off. I'm coming for you. And like, I don't know what that means. Sounds a little ominous to me. But like, she's not holding back. What conservatives do, they look at that and they're like, yes, like we defeated the worst of the worst. Well, you replaced her with somebody who's going to be like a party line Democrat who votes 100% the exact same way
That's the thing.
that Cory Bush voted. The difference is now you don't have Cory Bush to tell you exactly what it is that the Democrats are trying to do in the first place.
Because that's the thing is that's what all the Democrats believe, and they vote accordingly.
Yeah, they're just smarter to not say it out loud.
They're just like, don't say it out loud.
Right. And the same was true with Jamal Bowman pulling fire alarms in the Capitol and stuff, trying to, like, it's just an absolutely amoral, like, crazy person, and everybody could see that. And so, like, you know, conservatives joined with Democratic establishment folks to try to put that person back in a box. So you're like, well, don't give away our secrets. And like, for Republicans, you think you're like just improving the country. You're not. You're not. And I noticed this next one, they're all coming in for Ilhan Omar. And they want to replace Ilhan Omar with another Democrat who votes 100% of the same way that Ilhan Omar votes, but doesn't give away the store the same way that Ilhan Omar does. Here's the thing. Like, it's good to get excited about this. I understand the public interest in terms of just improving your country. And people like that degrade our country all the time. But if you're going to spend resources on something in a Democratic primary, don't do it on that. Like, don't do it on that. It's not going to make a lick of difference. There's no difference between Cory Bush and the person who replaced her, except for the fact that she said the quiet part out loud. That's it. And the same is true of Ilhan Omar. I mean, she may not say, like, hey, I'm just here representing Black Hawk Down. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, she may not just say that, whoever replaces her, but that's the same thing. They represent the same constituency, and they have the same Democratic voting record. And so, like, the way the Democrats handle this is that they want the Ilhan Omars of the Republican Party, the Cory Bushes of the Republican Party, to be representative of it because it's easier to malign. And that's the way they focus their resources.
Yeah, they say democracy's on the line and it's hanging by a thread because Republicans want to end democracy. And then they spend resources, Chuck Schumer, millions and millions of dollars in Republican primaries trying to elect the most extreme Republican out of that primary.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they're just cynical fucking liars.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, they are.
Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, look, you don't follow this closely, you got to hear it from us. But that's the game.
Yeah.
That's the game. That's what's happening. So I don't get that excited about this stuff. Like, is it good for the country? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good for the country.
I'm excited about that part, but I think it's just important context.
It's important.
Yeah.
It's important to look at it through an operative lens.
Right.
Anyway. All right. So, guys, I found this thing in the New York Times. I'm going to go through this really, really quickly that you would not believe. This is actually printed in the op-ed pages, the opinion pages of the New York Times. One night, a few weeks ago, I went to bed early, bothered by the oppressive heat and dismayed by this week's political news, President Biden's lackluster ABC News interview, and Donald Trump's claim earlier that he knew nothing about the Project 2025. I was tired, too, from explaining the recent daily news broadcast to my 2 daughters, 6 and 10.
Come on.
Jesus, child abuse.
Let him have
Including
child.
including the phrases hush money and porn star meant. Like, why would you need to do that? I got a 6-year-old. He doesn't ask a single thing about that.
And
I
who
have
would
no
talk
need to
about
explain
that to a 6-year-old?
I mean, it's just incredible. My husband stayed up working very early the next morning, and the bat flew into our bedroom through a screen door left open by accident. What happened over the next few days restored my faith in the systems, our country, that keep us safe.
What? Where is this going?
Dude, so it turns out a bat flew into this woman's house. This is they're like, a good story, let's print this.
This is in the New York Times.
Yeah. This is so a bat flew into her room. Like, what would you do? I know, and I've got good stories about what I've done and what my buddies have done with bats. Like, you grow up in the country or anywhere outside of a city, and like that happens from time to time. This woman's immediate reaction to this was to call the cops.
Come on. Yeah. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You just get a broom and you pin it against the wall, and you get a glove and you take it in your hand and you throw it out the fucking window.
Right.
That's as simple as that. Everybody who's ever been to a lake house, you know, that's been open for the first time in the summer.
Yep, you got bats.
You got this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she calls the cops.
You load up the shotgun with birdshot, bro.
So and just blast holes in your home.
In your own home.
So my buddy Hans.
When people ask, what's the holes? Used to be a bat.
My buddy Hans, who you guys have
Great
met,
guy.
He had this happen a few months ago, and his wife was like, Jesus, there's a bat in the house. It's in the room. You got to go get it. And he's like, oh, Jesus. So he grabs a tennis racket.
Yeah.
And he just starts wielding it around because tennis racket, like the radar doesn't work quite
Yeah,
the same.
because it's got a hole. Can't bounce off.
So he's swinging away on this thing, and you should see he's just a sweaty mess trying to swing away and hit this thing. It takes him like half an hour. Finally, he gets this thing, wounds it a little bit. So he throws something over it, and then he gives it the old grinder.
Oh.
Like you put the racket on
Yeah,
top
yeah,
of like a blanket, and then you just roll that thing, give it a good
That's
grind.
a wild approach.
Yeah, and then out it went, and he got it. This lady, she wanted the authorities involved, but it wasn't enough. She had animal prevention, and also she got the CDC involved.
She called Anthony Fauci because a bat flew in her house. Yeah.
He's like, shit, is it from my lap? That was supposed to be in 6 months.
In the end, this gal says, I am reminded of how much good we now enjoy, which hangs in the balance of this election, not just our lives, but the lives of our children, but also the government systems that keep us informed and protected.
Come on.
So her whole thing was like, she went back to Project 2025, which is a laughable concept. But like she said in Project 2025, she thought like that when they were talking about deep state stuff, they were talking about the CDC, which would have been eliminated. And unfortunately, the bat would never have left her house. That's how personal this thing has fucking gotten for this psychopath.
Honestly, I bet the bat was more scared of catching rabies from her. Like, this is the nuttiest thing I have ever heard. Someone relating a bat flying into their house to a story.
I knew it was going to be a banger when the lead was like, you know, I'm in bed bothered by President Biden's lackluster ABC News interview. I'm sorry, but if you go to bed bothered by what a politician did on television that night, like get a hobby, like do something else.
You're an ass.
Like talk to your family. You have kids.
That really is.
You have kids.
6 and 10.
That really is like, you need a hobby. Because if you're going to bed mad and you're like, and this is after I explained to my 6-year-old what a porn star is, it's like,
come on.
Dude, if you got, there's
so many things to do with your life.
Like the New York Times, I think I know the answer to this because it's selection number 2. But if you're the New York Times editorial board and you're receiving this kind of thing, you do one of 2 things. The first thing is you call Child Protective Services, and then you try to get like some kind of an inpatient psychology exam for somebody like this. Or the second thing is you print.
No, you got to print. You know what? Now that you mention that, you got to print it.
You got to print it
because she's gonna she'd call a fucking SWAT team to the office if you don't print it. I don't know who else she'd call. Mossad.
Yeah. No,
like some kill squad.
No, it's true.
She like brings in the big guns immediately.
If this is as close to a hostage note.
A bat flew in her house and she called the CDC. If you don't run her op-ed, she's gonna call Kamala Harris.
Like, just do it. Do what she says.
Do it.
Do what the crazy lady says.
She's crazy.
She's topped off the Chardonnay.
She's got a gun to her own head.
It's coming. She's talking about Stormy again. You don't know what she's capable of. All right, second story, the goat escape. This one's fantastic from the New York Post. 15 goats tasked with munching on poison ivy run loose through a Boston suburb in a quote-unquote project gone wrong.
Oh, my God.
15 goats were tasked with clearing poison ivy grove that bucked their job last week and escaped from a suburban Boston neighborhood. The cleanup crew was munching on brush surrounding the Linfield home last Tuesday when unattended dogs chased them out of their electric enclosure. Go Goats Go, the company that owns the goats, said.
I didn't know companies owned goats.
Oh, yeah, no, hold on. You got to hear this whole thing. It's not clear how long the terrified billies were chased, but confused neighbors began spotting the goats wandering aimlessly down the street as night fell. The Linfield Police Department swooped into the rescue for a call of 5 goats roaming in the streets, and they splintered the group. They looked grateful for someone to lead them back to safety. You know what the officer's name was, guys? The guy that was in charge of this operation?
I see it right here.
Officer Paisano.
Spaghetti.
It's Boston. It's like half Italian, half Irish. There's always tension over it, too. Like I told you the Knights of Columbus thing in Boston, right?
The guy...
They crack skulls out there. Everyone knows this. I guarantee Paisano's one, too.
Dude, the funniest meme I saw out of the Olympics was there was like a medal ceremony where there was like an Irish flag, an Italian flag, and an American flag. And it's like every VFW in Boston.
On a medal podium?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny as shit.
Yeah, it's very funny.
But, like, I mean, what do you suppose, like, if you were to just think in your head, Smug, what it is, like, Paisano was able to corral these goats, like, how do you think he did it?
I mean, I wouldn't know. This guy Paisano, I mean, I don't want to besmirch the guy because he's like a cop or whatever, but he's also probably a union member. You know what I mean? Like, they have their ways of making shit disappear. Like, that's what they've known for the longest time.
He's in one of the oldest unions.
Yeah.
You know?
These are guys who are experts in this.
It's called our thing.
You know, Paisano calls the other Paisano in waste management, and now the goats are disappeared. You know? They're in a compactor somewhere.
A compactor. Well, you'll be happy to know the final 2 goats, Happy and Finney, remained on the loose until Wednesday night. Happy and Finney.
It was like the end of Goodfellas. Layla's playing, and you see these goats just turning up in different parts of town on meat hooks.
Oh my God, we've had so much good fun with this. What an episode, fellas. I think we've done it. Remember our question, what's Tim Walz's biggest weakness? Like, subscribe, and then comment. We'll read them all, and then we'll select a few to read on our next show. You go to our YouTube channel for all of that, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, check out those new merch items.
Yeah, the rope hat.
I mean, the rope hat.
It's a banger.
This thing is just...
Get them while you can.
Hot. Red hot. Gotta love it. I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode. Gentlemen, thank you so much to the minions. Like Holmes said, if you have not yet, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and we will see you next week. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.